You're listening to the I Love You Keep Going podcast with George Haas. For more information, please visit our website at www.mettagroup.org. That's www.mettagroup.org.
So welcome everybody. This is I Love You Keep Going. It's Thursday, July 10th, 2025 at 7:37 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. And one of the things that comes up quite a bit in our conversations around attachment is how do you know, or at what point do you know that you have attachment disturbance? It's kind of like being gay. At what point in childhood did you recognize that, or however you like to look at it? At what point did you figure out that the way that you were operating in the world was different than the way other people were operating in the world? Uh, the And so that really depends on what kind of attachment disturbance we're looking at. Disturbance is an interesting word to use for attachment because I think that really it's an ordinary, predictable outcome to the conditioning that you face. And because you have an 85% chance of inheriting the attachment strategy of your primary caregiver, they had the same chance. And so these things, these ways of being in the world get handed down generation to generation in pretty good shape. So I think that we look at disturbance as a term because of holding up the model of secure functioning. But, maybe 70% of the people that come out of childhood don't have secure functioning. And so it's less normal to be secure than it is to be insecure, say, or disorganized. And because it's so direct in terms of the conditioning, that the way that your caregivers relate to you creates the conditions for you to develop an understanding of yourself and also an understanding of other people. And then you go about in the way that we do, creating the reality of that over and over again. But when do you begin to recognize that you have a sense of confidence, a sense that the world will meet your needs, the sense that who you are authentically is good enough, and that you can present that to the world and have an expectation that the world will respond to you? And how do you learn actually that the way that you are is not actually going to be good enough, and that you have to then engage in some form of pretending to be somebody else in order to get your needs met? And if you're on the disorganized end, when did you become so frightened that you had to hide to protect yourself, which is really what happens? And then when you're engaging with other people, what you're really doing is recognizing their orientation to the world and seeing if you can match it closely enough to yours that it would make sense, or that a relationship can function well. And if we split the world between organized attachment and disorganized attachment, organized people tend to be able to make relationships work, and disorganized people tend to not be able to do that. What point did you recognize you can't make relationships work? In early childhood, of course, it's not such an issue because you're embedded in your family, and relationships are quite secondary. And that really is pretty true all the way through childhood. It isn't until adolescence, until puberty, that we begin to attempt to move into the world under our own agency. And we have a better sense of how that goes. there's a lot of factors to this. One is what interests you and the social value of those interests. What capacities do you have? What talents do you have? And what is the social value of those? Uh, some sense of how to be popular, which is also, I think, something that can be learned in family systems, or the lack of that. Resources from the families that allow you to participate, all of those things come together. So secure people, kids, have the experience of their caregivers responding to them with interest and concern about who they are. They're open to the expression of the child in presenting themselves authentically, and they're responsive to that. So the child learns to express themselves authentically, and then they receive the care that they need as a result of that. And that creates this equation in the mind that if I ask authentically for the things that I need, the world will be responsive. And then that creates a perception of self and world that you then navigate the way in which you move around the world. And if you are insecurely attached, you don't actually have that sense of yourself or the world. You have different ways of relating. In children who are neglected in childhood, consistently rejected, so that the expectation that the child develops is that they will be neglected. The sense of expressing oneself authentically does not get a result. And so that isn't something that has value. And I really think it's important to consider this, that we learn in childhood what we need to do in order to get the care that we need, and the things that work to provide that response from people we begin to value, and the things that don't work to cause those responses we don't value. And so we develop that toolkit, that set of things that we can do in order to get the care that we need, the responses that we need. And we value the strategies that work, and we don't value the strategies that don't work. And so authenticity is something that's not particularly valued. In fact, it can be so ineffective in the family system that you grow up in that you don't even consider using it, because it doesn't produce a result. If you're neglected and the response that you get from your caregivers depends on your presenting the experience of your childhood as the caregiver needs it to be for you, then what you learn to do is present that. We would call it idealizing as a strategy. You inquire in the way that you need to what it is that the caregiver requires of you, and then you present that to the caregiver, and then they respond to you. You may recognize that it isn't actually what's authentically happening. You may realize that it isn't what you are thinking and feeling. But you do need to be taken care of, and that's the method in the family system that you grow up in. And if you get good at it, of course, you get a better response. And I think what really happens is we begin to understand that this is how the world works. This is what you need to do in order to get the things that you need. Would it?
George, is there any example you can give of young kids? Or I'm just looking, what are the kinds of things that the caregiver would want from the kid? Is there any examples that you've seen personally?
Well, Playing tennis might be one.
Playing tennis?
Yeah.
Does that mean like
So the family plays tennis, and so you play tennis.
oh, I see.
Um, and the family goes boating, so you go boating. Um, uh, your dad was a competitive swimmer, so you're a competitive swimmer. Your mother marched in the school band, and so you march in the school band. Is that beginning to make sense?
Because the mother asks the kid, or the kid is doing it to get attention by himself?
Well, in some sense, the mother valued a marching in the band. And in order to have something that's relatable to the mother, the child then marches in the band. Or the mother provides the opportunity for the child to march in the band, but there isn't an option not to. There isn't an option or inquiry into what the child might actually like to do instead. There's just the marching in the band, which you do. The parent thinks that this is appropriate for the child, and so the child engages in doing it. And there isn't a conversation about what the child might actually be interested in, what would be supportive of the child in that way. Is that making sense?
Like my nephew would play 6 different sports, and then eventually there's a conversation that the caregiver would have of like, which sport do you like the most?
Right.
Is it as simple as that?
Right. And in a family system where there was actual interest in what mattered to the child, there would be that conversation. In a family system where that what was actually important was what mattered to the caregivers, then the child would be offered the opportunity that mattered to the caregivers.
It's just that it takes some time before the kid can decide. So you have to push him to like go play for at least a few months, I don't know, before you can judge that you like it or not.
But you're still orienting around what the child wants. And what I'm trying to make a distinction about is that it's what the care matters to the caregiver in that family system of neglect, not what matters to the child. So the child is offered the opportunity that matters to the caregiver, not what matters to the child. Is that making sense? Christian?
Mudit, my parents were classical musicians, and they made me play violin and piano from an early age, even though I hated it. And they didn't let me quit for years. Um, Eventually, the Stockholm syndrome uh, took took place, and so now I play on my own. But it wasn't before they finally let me quit when I was like 12 or 13 that it kind of became my thing. Um, so there wasn't really much of a conversation as far as whether I was uh, it was more, am I going to play piano or violin rather than do I want to play? Which the answer would have been absolutely, I don't want to play.
And this is an interesting nuance because children need the advantage for children developmentally to play an instrument is huge, right? And so if you're a family that has the resources or you're involved in a school system that has the resources, children should begin to play instruments because it works so well in terms of the development of abstract thinking. So the support for the child would be to encourage them to play, but then the choice would be what do they want to play, right? So
After a few months.
right, or pick what instrument you want to play, and if you play it for a few months and it doesn't turn out to be the one you want, pick a different one and play that. You have to play, but the choice of what you play is yours, which is different from you can play the piano or you can play the violin. That makes sense.
I would have played the drums, which would have been probably pretty unacceptable.
Nowadays, of course, it's electronic and you're wearing earphones. So that racket that was the drums in our childhood doesn't really exist anymore. Although I would bet that you'd rather have the racket if you were a kid.
Well, it's not. I don't think it's any fun if you're not bothering someone.
I think sometimes when we have these conversations, we did that. What I'm hearing is a defense of your caregivers. That's how it lands sometimes for me.
Yes, because my caregivers provided me with all the things to play all the sports. And I played so many different sports for a very short time.
Right.
But I was just like, they provided me the resources, but was it, like
Did they provide the nurturing that you needed in order to understand how to become good at something?
yeah, that was not there, yes. But that's not their job, right? I thought that's the teacher who's teaching the sport.
No, it certainly is their job to support you in pursuing the things that you want and being able to pursue mastery at them. And just, it's a lot of what that is emotional support, so you're able to do it. And also time and attention. Did they show up at all the games?
Some of them, but not all of them.
Yeah. And the thing about being a person in the world and the thing about the human condition is that we want to have a sense that our actions have a response from the people that matter to us, and a response that's meaningful to us. And that's one of the things that's absent in a neglecting household, is that the only way that we can get a response is if we engage the caregiver in something that matters to them, rather than them being responsive to something that matters to us as a child.
This support thing is such a nuance and hidden in the language that it's never clear in the text, at least to me, that this communication interaction that happens, even though you provided all the resources, you provided all the money for the kid, but yet there's another layer of communication that happens.
Well, and when you look at the way that avoidance works, is it's very materially oriented. It's stuff oriented, and what's absent is the personal interaction and the personal interest in the child and the openness that the child feels in being able to express that. And it can be quite transactional. Whereas instead of that expression of the caregiver, that personal involvement of the caregiver, it's stuff. It's which actually doesn't have the same value to a child, really.
Right. Yeah.
What we want to be able to do is make a gesture, an authentic expression, and have it have an effect on the people that matter to us. And we never get away from that. We really want to be able to make an expression towards somebody that matters to us and then have them respond to it in a way that is useful to us, that meets our needs. And that's that expression, that you make an expression and it has an effect and you get a response from the people that matter to you. And if you grow up in a household that's avoidant, you learn the method of avoidance. Often the response is stuff. And then as an adult, that's how you engage. If you want to indicate to somebody your interest and involvement, it's an expression of stuff, which is in a transactional relationship, the stuff matters, but in an intimate, collaborative relationship, it's less important. And actually, the personal engagement is what's important. So the the person who grows up and learns avoidance as a strategy learns to exchange stuff for connection, learns to exchange stuff for care. And but they have to engage in somebody who's willing to accept stuff to provide care. And because avoidant people don't really reciprocate care, they reciprocate with stuff. Then you also have to have somebody who's willing to provide care for stuff, but not receive care in another way. And so what you end up with most of the time is engaging with somebody who's preoccupied. The reason why the preoccupied attachment strategy couples so well with the avoidant attachment strategy is that they learn emotional regulation through enmeshment in childhood. And so they're good at enmeshing with somebody. So an avoidant person who doesn't really register their emotional need, their emotional response to the world very well because of their strategy of suppression, doesn't mean they don't need to be emotionally regulated. And somebody who can then enmesh with them and regulate them without them having to be consciously aware of what's happening is useful to them. Because preoccupied people learn pretend mode is the main way of connecting. That is to say, they iterate over and over again a request for what they need because their caregivers are so scattered and the environment is so chaotic. It doesn't make sense for them to learn to monitor, but they iterate their need over and over again. That works well with a distressing person who can provide stuff, which is a token or a representation of being responsive without the emotional involvement, that without the authenticity that secure people require. Is that making sense? And you get out of that the emotional regulation that's provided by the preoccupied person without actually having to acknowledge that that's what's happening, even without much in the way of a conscious understanding of that's what's happening. So that how would you know that this is happening? Is you would have in childhood somebody who takes over care for another person, somebody who allows that to happen. So the sense of autonomy is in a way compromised by that. When you're engaging with other people, do you notice when somebody is feeling, is empathetic? Do you notice when they're not feeling, they're not empathetic? Do you notice when somebody is engaging in a way that feels inauthentic to you? You'd have to have a perspective of authenticity in order to understand that. Can you tell when somebody can mentalize well or cannot mentalize well? Can you tell when somebody can emotionally regulate well or not emotionally regulate? Maybe you think, oh, this person is mature and this person is immature, which is actually an expression of a level of mentalizing. Do you not pay that much attention to it, or are you just drawn to the people that you seem to be able to form relationships with them and make the kind of relationships that, if you reflected on them, would actually be similar to the kind of relationships that the adult caregivers managed when you were a child? Disorganized people often in their mid-30s abandon attempting to form relationships. So what you'll notice about disorganized people is that they're mostly alone. They don't have a wide social group. They don't have many people in their lives. Can you recognize that? I think for most of us, we get through our 20s and we are employing mainly the strategies that our family systems provided for us without much intervention. And then we see the kinds of relationships that we're able to make work. And only if there's a deficit of some kind that we have a real sense that we're not having the kind of relationships that we want personally, or that our capacity to form relationships in the work sphere that we enter is hindering us making progress in the work that we want to do. Do we then begin to question what it is that has happened and what it is that we might do about it? One of the marvelous things about the time that we live in is there's actually something that you can do now about early attachment conditioning, and moderate it in such a way that you're more likely to have secure functioning relationships. You're more likely to be able to change that early conditioning, whereas I would say really before the last 10 years or so, even less, it hasn't been a real possibility. Mostly what we had before then was the accommodation to that early conditioning and making do the best that we could. I think now there really is the capacity to change at a deep level these patterns of conditioning, which has never really been possible before. This is going to be the approach of remapping the original attachment conditioning. Ideal parent figure protocol works really well for that. The intentional development of emotional regulation strategies, the intentional development of your capacity to mentalize. There's a few ways to do that. Our approach is meditation based, so that you undertake a series of meditation practices that increase your capacity to mentalize. And so what does that mean? You're able to track in real time how you've created meaning out of the experience of the present moment. So you have the capacity to sense something, the object can be sensed. When there's contact, consciousness of the sensing experience arises. It's evaluated, and this is mainly by the body. Does it need urgent attention? Does it not matter if you ever get to it? Is there time for a pleasant experience? And then it's mapped onto the perceptual database, this catalog of meaning that you've created over the course of your lifetime. And if there's an entry in that catalog that matches closely enough to what's going on in the present moment, we assign that meaning to it, and it fixates into the perception of reality that the self-experience witnesses. That is to say, that's what you think is happening. It's not actually what's happening, it's what is happening means to you. So I think that that's an important thing to pay attention to, because you can assign a lot of different meanings to the things that are happening. And because everybody's conditioning is different, everybody tends to assign a different meaning. But can you think about all of that fast enough to understand that I have made this meaning based on what's happening? Then can you figure out what about that experience of meaning that you formed is something that you would like to express to other people, and how you might express it so that they would understand you. People who don't mentalize fast enough don't understand why they've created the meaning that they've created in the present moment. And while they might understand what it is that they would like to express about it, they can't think fast enough to understand how to express it to somebody else so that they understand what you mean. Because everybody's definitions are different, sometimes what something means to you might mean something quite different to somebody else. And can you learn the definitions that somebody else uses and then transliterate your expression in a way that they really are understanding, that you're really effective in your communication? You can mentalize fast enough, you can do that. And if you can't mentalize fast enough, you can't think fast enough, you can't do that. And so really what you are is reactive rather than communicative. Then what you have to do is receive the response of the other person, understand what they mean. Are they transliterating? Are they paying attention to what it means to you so that they're effectively communicating what that means? Or are they simply expressing a reaction to their understanding of what you meant and not actually able to track it fast enough to ensure that they're effectively communicating to you? If you can't track whether somebody understands what you mean and they can't track whether you understand what they mean, it's very easy to get into these conflicts around meaning where really neither person is receiving the intention of the other person. And then can you modify your understanding of the situation with somebody else? That's the complete set of mentalizing. Can you do that fast enough? So if you can, then you can be an effective communicator. And if you can't, then it's hit or miss. Would it?
George, I realized the see in, hear in, feel in has become, well, I've stopped doing it, but it tends to put the inner light on quite a bit. And I feel I'm not really focusing on fully in the moment because the witnessing of the inner system is on more. So it's like the inner, it's like an introversion behavior.
So you just have to get faster.
What do you mean?
Well, you can track all of that material and not lose track of the present moment. That's a speed question, really. In the beginning, when you're learning to do it, the sensory clarity of each of those aspects takes too long to be able to speed through it fast enough. But when you get really sensitive to it and really have clarity, you can get through all of that and still be engaged in the experience of the present moment. It's a way of understanding how you're making experience.
Actually, now that you said that, actually my question now is with not that, but my see in, hear, and feel in are not very pleasant. It's not at least the feeling is not like a pleasant thing all the time. It's just
No, it isn't.
It's just suffering, like in the body, essentially. There's just.
Well, so then what aspect of it is that suffering experience? Is it self-generated emotional regulation strategies that are producing afflictive experience as a way of regulating? Then you train the mind out of doing that. That's the thing. But you can have a negative reaction to something and it's information and not need it to be different is how you get out of the suffering relationship to it. Craving, aversion, unconsciousness, right? I want something to be different than it is. I don't want what is. I can't bear what is. All of those are multiplying the discomfort of it. Whereas if it can just be what it is. And then can you be effective in expressing those kinds of things to the person that you're engaging with? The thing about inauthenticity is that it's really a form of abandonment fear. You don't want to express something to somebody because you feel that if you express it, you'll be abandoned, and so you express something else. but then you're in an inauthenticity that prevents you from feeling secure in the relationship, from feeling safe in the relationship, and often not being able to get your needs met because you haven't expressed what they are. Whereas in a relationship that's pretty safe and pretty solid, there I don't want to necessarily say should, but the capacity to hold all of those experiences is part of that sense of safety, that you can say anything. Now, mind you, you need to be able to mentalize fast enough so that it's in right speech and not reactive, so that it comes out in a way that might be hurtful unnecessarily to someone. That makes sense.
It's just the ordinary dissatisfaction or the ordinariness of everything.
Right.
But this is, I think it's common in spiritual circles, but yeah.
You know, there so much of life is repetitious, so much of life is ordinary. And we do have such an intense marketing of what is supposed to be peak experiences. But if you could treat an ordinary experience and a peak experience as the same value sense, then everything has that quality of value, right? Everything has, I like the word sacred, although it's not everybody's cup of tea. Every moment has a quality of sacredness to it. Christian?
George, we really like valorize climax in our culture, but I have the unique ability to be able to bring any woman to anticlimax.
I don't even know what the category of humor that is.
This is being recorded, right?
Yes.
Oh, Christian, it's on file now.
We're just podcasting now.
That, Christian.
Yeah.
It's funny, I was thinking of feeding all these transcripts because there's no book. I was talking about a book last time, that because there is no book, I can feed all this transcriptions into AI and it can create a whole book
Yes, please.
and then create a podcast.
They just did that. Dan's group just did that with his, which is nice. I for myself, don't find it interesting enough that it gets up onto the upper end of the list of to-do things so that it actually gets done.
Is that a question, George?
Yeah.
Now I'm going to be tapping into the level 1. I haven't signed up yet. I need to do that tomorrow. So I'm going to be doing the level 1, and I have read The Power of Attachment.
Uh-huh.
I know the 4 basic styles, but when you talk about preoccupied, is that the same as anxious, or is that like a subset?
So there are child categories and adult categories. The child categories are secure. So the child category for secure is secure, and the adult category for secure is secure. The child category is anxious, avoidant, and then the adult category is dismissing. The child category is anxious, ambivalent, and the adult category is preoccupied. And then disorganized in childhood and disorganized in adults. But disorganized is as complex as organized. And so you would say fearfully preoccupied, fearfully avoidant, and then complexly disorganized, really, to break it down fully.
Is that going to be covered in level 1? That's so much.
It is, yeah.
You can retain that. Okay.
Yeah, it is. The so disorganized and complexly disorganized would make 5 categories. So the characteristic of disorganized is dissociation, and complexly disorganized are people that use more than one strategy. And then you have the capacity to be disorganized and complexly disorganized. The reason that the system is sort of ad hoc in the way that it is because the original version of attachment was the 3 child categories: secure, anxious, avoidant, anxious, ambivalent. And then when they were evaluating children for their attachment, they came upon a group of strange situations that could not be classified, so they called them cannot be classified, or CC, because they had the children exhibited more than one attachment strategy. Then when they get on to the adults, what they noticed is that some people are dissociative and some people aren't, and the coherence of their narrative falls apart, or it doesn't fall apart. And so they have the disorganized category, which is really about whether somebody is dissociative or not. So those are the 5 really that you have.
Is there a book that I can get a hold of?
The one book that I would read is Attachment Disturbances in Adults by Dan Brown and David Elliott. It's published on Norton. That if you read one book, that would cover it all.
Attachment Disturbances in Adults.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, thank you, Christian. Appreciate it. Awesome.
So just to wrap up our topic for tonight, the way that you begin to understand that you have attachment disturbances is that the way that you're able to form relationships doesn't work very well. You have personal relationships, of course, unfulfilling in a way, or relationships in your work life. Most of the work that we're able to do in the way that the economies are structured is basically a team sport, really. How well can you play with others might be another way to do it. And if you have constant difficulty in that, then that may also be pointing to attachment disturbances. If you find that that's what's actually happening, take heart that there is actually now a way that you can begin to examine this and to affect it in such a way that you will be able to change these underlying relational structures that have come out of your experience in the family system that you had, and that you can then form a way of being in the world that's going to be much better, even secure, if you want to do that. What kind of meditation practice would you like to do? Concentration and insight, hard practices, ideal parent figure. 3, Any other votes? 3, 2. All right. Let's do some ideal parent figure. How's that?
It was good. I'm really tired. It's almost midnight here, so I was nodding off, but I was able to tap into that child and started crying. You know, I've been on this path for 35 years, so it amazes me when there's more in there. So that was good.
Good.
Excited to do more of it.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Someone else?
So I was going to say, I'm still not convinced that the distractions that come up are actually meaningful.
What comes up?
I mean, there are just spikes of fear. It's like the price of Bitcoin. Like there's just distractions, right?
It's going to be worth too much? What?
I'm all in. And some past woman or like some other things that just are just distractions. I know you mentioned ones that they are important, but I'm not sure how to.
Well, in a general meditation like this, there's no means of exploring them. But if you were to do something in a facilitated way, that there would be a way to explore it. What you're really seeing is the different components of the memory thread that is creating the sense of the experience. And so we tend to, in the human memory, group specific kinds of things together. And what you then begin to recognize when you see the different episodes that arise is that that's all a category of memory for you. What is that category? So that you begin to recognize it. It's one of the ways that allows you to mentalize fast enough to really understand how you're experiencing the present moment so that you can know what to relate about it to someone else.
It's just spikes of fear, and then gone.
Right. But they're related to the way that you've made the present moment in some way.
It's not the thought coming in that's just distraction. You're saying it's more than that, just the present moment.
Well, it's in some way related, it's some way conditional in terms of how it comes up.
Okay.
It is part of the richness of the experience of the present moment, the way that you make it. And so it's interesting to be able to understand how you're making the present moment that includes those elements of fear. So that you have a way of, if you need reassurance, of getting a reassurance that then is settling of the fear. I guess that would be another way to look at it. What is it that it represents in terms of what you need in response to the experience?
Bitcoin keeps going up, but yes.
All right. So let's see what's happening. Tomorrow at 7 p.m., I'm going to do Pacific time a workshop at 7 on addiction. So we'll just begin to talk about what that's like from a meditation point of view. Saturday, I'm going to begin a level 1, which is going to run for 3 Saturdays. Then on the 9th of August, I'm going to start a addiction level 1, which will run for 3 Saturdays. And then on the 13th of September and the 20th of September, I'm going to do the exploration workshops again. And then we'll be at the end of the summer. Seems like it just started. I'm also going to do a level 1 workshop on the 19th of September. So if any of that's interesting to you, take a look. It's up on the website. Really appreciate your practice. Glad to see you. I offer the teaching freely. If you're able to make a donation, it's appreciated. There's a link on the website to do it. Any amount is appreciated. It helps support me and also the work Mettagroup is doing. Good to see you, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.